All right, here we go. Welcome back. Parshat Mishpatim. So we're not going to talk about the laws and the boring part of the Parsha. We're going to talk about the exciting part of the Parsha. Because this Parsha is divided into two parts. The law, which can be a little cumbersome. In fact, so much of the hard Gemara, there's two parts that are very, very difficult Gemara. I say three. There's three Gemaras that are very difficult. You want to go to page 63, 62, 63. There are three Gemaras that are very difficult. One part is the laws of slaughter, ritual, kosher. That's pretty difficult. Then there's the parts of marriage and divorce and levirate marriage and all that. And then you have civil litigation, property damage, all that. And that whole civil litigation part, it's all in this week's parsha, in 15 verses, but pages and pages and pages. It goes on and on. You also have some of the men-woman laws here, but we're not going to talk about that because
we all know it anyway.
Exactly. Right. Just give me your credit card, and when you're done, I'll let you know. Here we're going to talk about sort of what connects to last week's parsha. Last week's parsha, we learned about the 10 Commandments. Right?
All 11 of them.
All 11.
I thought there were 14.
Don't get caught. Last week's parsha is also sort of divided into two parts. You have the story of Yisro making up the justice system, and then you have the story of the 10 Commandments. 10 Commandments, parsha's over, story's over. Right? Wrong. This week's parsha, you have all these laws of like I said, civil litigation. You have causing damage. We have the laws of indentured servants, and we have a bunch of different types of laws. And then mitamol, you know mitamol means? Joe? Mitamol means all of a sudden, Torah jumps back in to the story of the giving of the Torah. And today we're going to discuss why. Why not just put it in one parsha? You want to put it in two parshas. The story of Joseph ends off in a cliffhanger. And God said, I am. Tune in next week. Right? Commercial break, exactly. You couldn't fit it into an hour. It's a 2-hour special. Remember in the old days?
No, this was way back when they had to put film in the camera. And that's
exactly. The 10 Commandments are rolling, and right? Had to add. So today we're going to discuss what, why, and
Two tablets.
And obviously with the help of Rashi. So first, let's look at Rashi's rules, which we're going to be discussing tonight. Rashi rule number 1 is that generally he likes to learn the Torah that goes in chronological order, unless he can't, so to speak. Remember, Rashi likes to stay to the simple explanation, and the simple explanation is that the events in the Torah happen in order, unless there's a reason to say otherwise. And there are plenty of places that there are, but let's take it for what it is. They happen in order. Rule number 2: when Rashi explains something, so he quotes the words in the verse. That's the title of Rashi. In Hebrew, it's called a divrei hamaschil, the title words. He only quotes the words in the verse that he's commenting on, that he's explaining. He doesn't quote the whole verse. He only quote 1, 2, 3 words, okay? Rule number 3 is every word Rashi uses is to teach us a lesson. But Rashi was very, very careful. He wrote his commentary a few times. He erased it. I don't think he erased, but put backspace. Remember the bad old days when you're using a typewriter and you made a mistake?
White out.
But then you went back.
Then
you went back and the letter wasn't on the line. Oh my God! The kids don't know the anxiety. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
What about erasable paper? Remember that stuff?
Yeah.
I don't know that. That's
That was paper that was very special. It erases very easily.
Yeah.
They used it for theme papers and stuff like that.
Okay, so let's get it. And so the theme of the class today is going to be about relationships. Like the Torah is all about a way of connection. So you have in every relationship, it's probably up here. in every relationship, you have the experience of what they do and why you do it, right? So your honey bunny asks you to get a coffee, so you get the coffee. So there's the act of getting the coffee, and there's why you're getting the coffee. Okay, answer because you're afraid. Answer because I want to eat breakfast till tomorrow morning, right? Whatever it is. So there's the what and the why in every relationship, right? Make sense?
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes the what we get people in relationships get very caught up in the what and forget about the why. Chassidus talks about at length that the relationship that we have with God is a reflection of a relationship that we have with other people. The famous story when I think it's Rabbi Yochanan. I think he's my default rabbi. Whenever I don't know the name, I say Rabbi Yochanan. I'm so bad with names.
That's his name.
By the way, there was a great rabbi in Montreal, where my father's from. His name was Rabbi Wolf Gringlas. And he was a very special person, literally. I mean, the Rebbe called him a Kabbalist. He was a different type of person. So one time, something called like a pilpul, or one of the Bachrim, the young men in yeshiva, got up to give us, a little Torah talk. And during the Torah talk, he quoted one of the rabbis in the Gemara. I'm not sure he said Abaye or Rava, whatever, right? So after the class, Rabbi Greenglass goes over to him and says, by the way, you quoted Abaye. It's not Abaye, it was Rava. So the young man says, Rabbi, stop busting my chops. Abaye, Rava, who cares? So Greenglass says, you obviously haven't learned. He says, because it says, I don't know where it says it. He said, when you quote a rabbi, the rabbi is saying the Torah, his Torah along with you. When you quote Rava's quoting, so here you're quoting Abaye, and Abaye is in heaven saying, I never said such a thing. I don't know what you're talking about, right? So I'm saying the story of Rabbi Yochanan, I'm not sure. It's in the Gemara Brachas, I believe it's Rabbi Yochanan. So before Rabbi Yochanan passed away, Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai passed away, his student asked him, says, Rebbe, give us a bracha. Before he passed away, he said, Hiratzai, it should be, halavai, halavai means the wish, it would be, that you would fear God the way you fear man. So his student said, that's it? Says, that's a good starting point, okay? Many times, so if we would treat God the way we treat people, we'd have a very good relationship. You hold the door for people, you say please and thank you. Someone does something nice for you, right? You say, if someone says...
What are you talking about?
Right, yeah, exactly. So imagine it's your wife's birthday and you come in and you say, here are the flowers. You know what I'm saying? Don't worry about it, it's empty, right? That's why I threw it. Here are your flowers, Valentine's Day, whatever it was. It just happened. You come, you slap down, here's your chocolate, here's your card, leave me alone, put on the game, click, you know what I'm saying? See, and then if she asks you, then she's mad. She's not talking. And he said, why are you mad? I got you chocolates. I got you flowers, whatever it is. I did all the what, right? And he said, yeah, I understand you did the what, but you forgot about the why. So in every relationship, there's the what, and there's the why. So, and tonight we're going to explain the story of the giving of Torah at Sinai, the fact that it's in two different portions. It's not for no reason. Everything in the Torah is precise, because one is on the path of the what, and one narrative is on the path of the why. Okay? So before we get to the answer, let's get to the question. So
It's always best to have the question before the answer.
No, Jeopardy to give you the answer. Yeah, see, there you go. See? What do you think? Why do you be in the neck? Larry, you're invited to go back to Zoom. So.
Oh, wait a minute. This is
The text you see on page 65 and 66. It's a very long text because it basically gives the entire narrative. First in Parshat Yitro, and then 1a and 1b. You can read it. Talks told the narrative Parshat Yitro, and then in text 2 is there 2a? No, I think it's just 2. And 2 it's a narrative of this week's Parshat Mishpatim. So in just you guys can read it. I'll summarize. It is that in the third month they came to the Mount Sinai, if you guys remember from last week, and they said we want to hear straight from God. And that was on the second day, and then on the third day, Moshe brought up their request. They wanted to hear, so there's plan A, so to speak, that God was going to speak to Moshe only. And Moshe came down and said, and when Moshe told the Jewish people that, said, no, we came all this way. We want to hear straight from Hashem. Hashem was very pleased. That means the Jewish people, they realized the more special experience it can be to hear straight from Hashem. So Hashem said, okay, you have to prepare for 3 days. So we know what happens on day 1 of Sivan, day 2 of Sivan, day 3 of Sivan. Day 3 of Sivan, that's when Moshe tells them, prepare yourself for the third day. Then the narrative in 1A, jumps to the 6th of Sivan. God came down to Mount Sinai and said, I'm God, don't, and all this other stuff. Don't make idols, honor your parents, as Jerry Seinfeld said, and yada, yada, yada. Right? Whatever it is. Now, what happened day 4 and 5 of Sivan? We don't know. The Parshat Yitro, last week's Parsha, doesn't say. In this week's Parsha, and again, it's not like the beginning of this week's Parsha is a story. There's no story. This week's Parsha these are the laws. If a man gets a Jewish servant, he has to treat him like this, right? And if he gets a Gentile servant, he has a woman servant, and it goes to, if a man's animal does damage and a person hurts another person, all that. It's going through law. And then text 2a begins as if it's a continue. Sorry, not 2a, 2. Text 2 begins as if you were middle talking about it. It's like when a woman starts talking to you. In her brain, the conversation was the whole time, and you're lost, right, Barbara? Come on, all women do it. You know it's the truth, right?
A woman's brain is very complex.
Watch it, kid.
So
I do have a
I saw a line today that women speak in circles, men speak in lines.
Interesting.
Anyway, but if you look at text 2 on page 69, this is chapter 24. The Torah picks up the conversation as if you're middle talking about it. Like it took a break to tell us all these mundane laws, and by the way, and Moshe went up to God, and God told him, "You come and you bow down." And then Moshe did the sacrifice. So day 4 and 5 was that's when the Jewish people said the famous line to God, "We will do and we will hear." Right? God was very excited, and then on the fifth day there was the sacrifices and entering into the covenant. By the way, this is where we learn out. This is where we learn out from last week's parsha. This week's parsha, the laws of conversion. What were the Jewish people before the giving of the Torah at Sinai? They were Hebrews, right?
Okay.
What were they after the giving of the Torah at Sinai? They were Jews, Bnei Israel. What's the difference? Everyone converted to Judaism. What is converting to Judaism? What do you got to do when you convert to Judaism? You have to accept upon yourself the entire Torah. That happened at Sinai. They have to have a bris milah. That happened, right? That happened at the giving of the at the Exodus. And you have to bring a sacrifice, which Moshe did. We see here Moshe did on the 5th day of Sivan. And you see it's the blood of the covenant and all that. In fact, there's a very interesting debate, I should say, is when Mashiach comes and the temple is rebuilt and the sacrifices are reinstated. Are all the converts, because there's going to be a resurrection of the dead, are all the converts from year 69, from the destruction until now, are they going to have to bring a sacrifice? Meaning, is it that they have to bring a sacrifice but they can't? Or is it they can't and therefore they don't have to? This is a debate in Jewish law.
What about the women?
Same thing.
Okay.
Well, the women don't have to. The women don't have to have a slave circumcision. A wrong culture here.
No, I understand.
Yeah, but women have to. Yeah, bring a carbon.
Okay.
Yeah. It's a very interesting debate. Meaning, if you can't, that remove your obligation, or and then when you can, you do it. I mean, the whole, because it's not like a time-related mitzvah. Like, for example, are we going to have to bring, on Shabbos, you bring a certain sacrifice in the temple, right? Karban Musa, for example. Are we going to have to start bringing 8,000 sacrifices, whatever, for all the Shabbosim we missed over 2,000 years? Obviously not. Because once a day passed, obligation passed, right? But again, side conversation. But it's very interesting debate in Jewish law. We're gonna have to wait and see. So Parshat Yitro tells us about day 1, 2, 3, and day 6 of Sivan. This week's Parshat Mishpatim tells us day 4, 5, and also of day 6. So if you see verse here, so verse 5 is day 5. Verse 6 is day 6. The day 5. Here you go. Verse 9, if you're looking here, I don't want to, I'm going to leave this on the board just so you guys have it. And then text 2. Yeah, text 2 in verse 9, and Moses and Aaron, Nadab and Avihu ascended, and they perceived the God of Israel. That happened on the 6th day of Sivan, right? And this all happens on the 6th day of Sivan. Okay, so, and then interestingly enough, by the way, after Parshat Mishpatim is over, what do we learn? More laws about the building of the Mishkan, and then in 3 weeks we have the devastating, tragic story of the golden calf. So the God that was speaking to Moshe. And then God told Moshe, by the way, you gotta go. You gotta leave. The meeting's over. Meeting's adjourned because someone left the sink on. You gotta go back home, right? They're building a golden calf. So it's very interesting, the narrative. You have some of it Parshat Yitro, break for law, continuing the narrative. Break for law, continuing the narrative. So obvious question is, just give us the whole story. Why? What is this? What is this? Warner Brothers? You trying to make a trilogy out of it? More money, right? That's what it is. Well, 10 Commandments wasn't long enough. You had to make,
So then they get Ben-Hur.
I don't know much.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it's a long movie or not. But right, so why is the obvious question is why? So let's get in. So now let's get into Rashi a little bit, okay? So Rashi on this week's Parsha, when the Torah just resumes the narrative out of nowhere, Rashi on verse 3a, I'm going to change the, okay, you guys want to look at the timeline here? So narrative number 1, okay? Let me know when I can change the slide. You guys have it all? Right? Narrative number 2, leading up, Moshe relays the words to God, and Moshe's descent, which happens on, okay. We already did text 2. Let's get to text 3. Well, we said that, okay? Parshat Kitisa, aftermath of giving the Torah. Okay, we said this. All right. All right. This is the narrative we have. So maybe we can turn the camera around so people can see the slide. All right. Now you don't want to see the slide. You want to see my beautiful face. The face that sells money, baby. Sells advertising. So the question number one is, why is the events of the 6th of Sivan repeated twice? And we have some of it in Parshat Yitro, and then again in Parshat Mishpatim. And also, why is it so out of order? That's what we're dealing with. So in text 3a, we're going to focus on the verse where it says it was the first verse of text 2, which is Moshe. You see repeated 3a. Moshe went up to Moshe. God said, "You should come up. You, Aaron, and Nadav and Avihu are Aaron's 2 older sons. Later they die, and they walk into the Holy of Holies. The 70 elders, and bow down from far." Just to get it, just to fill in some holes in this verse for everybody. So all the Jewish people waited on the bottom of the mountain. Then there were the people that paid VIP tickets, special backseat passes, right, backstage passes. So they had this elders who were the holier people. They went a little higher. I think the firstborns went a little higher. The elders went a little higher. Nadav and Avihu went a little higher. Aaron went a little higher. Moshe was on the top of the mountain. We have in last week's portion there was choshech on and ruffle, darkness, cloud, and thick cloud. Moshe went he disappeared into the smoke. So Rashi comments on this text. It says, and the title of Rashi. Remember what I said about Rashi. The title of Rashi is significant, right? The title of Rashi is in the quotes. And to Moses, God said, "Come up." So what does Rashi say? This section was said before the Ten Commandments. This section was said on the fifth of Sivan. Come up. Moshe was given the instruction to come up on the fourth day of the month of Sivan. He came up, right? Moshe only went up in the morning. So if we can say that this part of the story happened after the giving of the Torah, because you can read it also after, right? God gave the Ten Commandments, and God told Moses to come up, right? In theory, can it be after? Right. But God, Moshe, and if you read it simply, you could think it's after. But Rashi rejects the simple explanation, and Rashi says, no, the Torah is not going in chronological order. Which is, why does Rashi do that?
Because doesn't Rashi like to study the Torah in chronological order?
Yeah, but according to this, Rashi is saying the Torah is not in chronological order.
Okay.
So the question is, why? It's true that that the Torah is not bound to chronological order. It's true, and many times, like you see in text number 4, the famous line in the Gemara, where Menashe ben Tachlifa says the Torah does not follow a structured order of events. Sometimes yeah, sometimes no. Well, like the famous line from Fiddler on the Roof, when Yentl gives Huddle, when Huddle's the second daughter, married to Perchik, and Perchik's taken away by the Russian authorities, and Yentl comes to Huddle and says, Huddle's the second daughter, right? Yitzhaitl's the first one, Huddle's the second one. Says Huddle, here's a letter from Pirchik. Says it's open. Yendel says, so it's opened, right? It's out of order, so it's out of order. That doesn't bother us so much, because a lot of things in the Torah are not in order. In fact, next week's Torah portion, when we learn about the construction of the Mishkan, there's a whole argument. Did God give the commandment because of the sin of the golden calf? Was the commandment to build the Mishkan before the sin or after? If you look at the chronological order of events, right? We have the commandment to build the Mishkan, and then we have the sin of the golden calf. But maybe we also know that the construction of the Mishkan was to atone for the sin of the golden calf, and also because God says to Moshe, "I need a private place. Too much exposure to the Jewish people is not good, because they can't be perfect. You're perfect, so you and I can hang out all the time." Like it says in Parshat Ki Tisa, that Moshe spoke to God like a man speaks to his friend. There was a camaraderie there, but with the Jewish people, not on that level. So just the next week's parsha, we have an example. The Torah is not written in the order of events. But Nachmanides and Rashi, if you look at text 5, say it's true. It's not always, but it's preferential to learn the Torah that way. If you look at text number 5, Nachmanides says that there's no chronological order of the Torah. It's true. In my opinion, the entire Torah follows the chronological order, aside from when the Torah makes a departure explicit. At any such departure must have a good reason. So and Rashi seems to agree with the Rambam, with Nachmanides. And now comes the Rebbe and asks the question, text number 6. Rashi cites the rule there's no chronological order in Torah of earlier and later in Torah a number of times. However, it's clear that this principle can only be invoked when there's no alternative explanation, and there must be a reason for this departure. In our case, however, we need to explain the section beginning, and God and to Moses, God said, "Come up," who's actually said on the 4th of Sivan, why does it appear at the end of Parshat Mishpatim out of place? Why is either learn it out of order or put the section in order? Why did the Torah put it here? If it's the same narrative, it's the same story, put it where it belongs. Either it's not the same story, or if it's the same story, put it where it's supposed to. And also, another question we have on Rashi is, what does the word "come up" have anything to do? Remember, in the title of Rashi, if you look at 3b, go back to page 71 and 3b. In the quotes is the title of Rashi. And to Moshe, God said, "Come up." What's Rashi explaining here? Rashi is explaining here the placement of the section, right? So you should have just said "Vel Moshe" to Moshe. What's the word "come up" here? He's not explaining those words. He's not addressing those words. Those words should not be in the title of Rashi. Another question here is, Rashi uses the words before the Ten Commandments. Asas Dibris. Usually, the door's open, right? Yeah. Usually,
there's a person coming in.
oh boy. Usually, look at this guy. Usually, it's called the giving of the Torah. Why does Rashi use the words? I use the words the Ten Commandments. Not a big deal, but the change tells us something. Are you ready to get to the answer? The answer is there's two different stories here. It's the same story, but it's two different stories. Or each story is trying to teach something else. That's why they appear in two different parshas. One parsha is focusing on one idea. Another parsha is talking about another idea. And therefore, it's not... So the Torah functions as for two purposes. First of all, Torah tells us, what does it mean to be a Yid? What do you got to do to be a Yid? To be a Yid, you got to keep kosher. And you got to put on tefillin, right? And you got to wear the fringy things. Right? If a guy comes and says, I'm a very good practicing Jew. I'm a perfect Jew. Right? And he says, you keep kosher? Nah. You keep Shabbos? Nah. You put on tefillin? Nah. You shake a lulav v'nesek? Nah. You hit a shofar? I don't listen. You don't follow Torah. What kind of... No, you don't do what God says to do. So there's one part where God says, you want to act Jewish? This is how you got to do. And then there's another part of the Torah. It's not so much about what you do. It's about the connection that Hashem has to a Jewish person. It's about the relationship. It's not so much about what you do. So it's a part of the Torah talks about how God loves the Jewish people, and Jewish people love God. And then there's some parts of the Torah where God says, I need you to eat crackers. I need you to sit in the hut. I need you to do all this stuff. Yeah.
BJ's had the matzah out already.
Oh, really? How much a pound?
$17 and change for the
For the
shmur.
shmur.
Which one? The Holy Land? The
Yeah.
one that's... Ting! You need a cut? Yeah, that's the tough stuff. I haven't gotten a quote yet for matzah.
That's what gave me my intestinal blockage.
That's why you have to get the Ukraine super thin matzah. It's the best matzah.
Who knows if we'll be able to get Ukraine super thin?
They shipped it a long time ago. Next.
In the last shipment.
Oh, stop it! Turn off the
This is
news.
last year's shipment they're getting rid of.
Yes, turn off the news for a second.
That's not news.
Everything's gonna be okay. I'll have matzah. Don't worry about it.
Oh.
All right, relax.
No,
And I
own the trader.
don't rest. It's already here. Okay, so let's learn. So let's learn how the Rebbe explains it. Right? There's two stories, but there are two portions surrounding one event, but it's two different tracks of what's going on. Text number 7. See, it's here. These are the two tracks. One is a manual and one is a relationship. The Rebbe says as I.
Okay.
Text number 7. Okay, hello, Ron. The giving of the Torah achieved two objectives. First, God gave the Torah, gave the Jewish people the commandments and the laws of the Torah. Second, through receiving the Torah, we become God's people. So, what's the first in Parshat Yisro? what's the story all about? The story is all about that God brought us to Mount Sinai and said, this is what you got to, if you look back at text number 1, this is what you got to tell the people, you got to tell them the laws, you got to tell them the consequences. It's a very factual, this is what you got to do, right? Don't come up on the mountain and only when you hear the shofar blowing, and I'm God. It's all about the laws. I'm the God, I'm the boss, these are my laws. I mean, you got to do it. In the second narrative, are there laws? No. God comes to the Jewish people and says, I want you to be my people. And the Jewish people say, God, we love you. Whatever you do, we'll say we love you, right? It's not so much about what. It's about the relationship and how they expressed it. So let's read the Rebbe's words. This is text number 8. Oh, here you go back the timeline. 1 second. Why is it me? The air conditioner's it's a little warmer, you know?
I didn't do it.
It's cool to 73. I don't know why. You didn't do it, huh? For once, Larry didn't break it. All right. So let's learn the Rebbe's words here. In text number 8. So in Parshat Yisrael, redt sich beiker wegen des Silas mitzvot Torah. In Parshat Yisrael, Torah is focusing on the laws. Therefore, the account of the preparations focuses on the commandments. You want to get commandments, you got to prepare yourself. By contrast, the account in the Torah portion of Mishpatim focuses on the second aspect, which is the covenant. And a covenant, what's the purpose of a covenant? Why do you make a covenant? You remember the story? Remember the story of Yaakov and Yosef? Yaakov asks Yosef, I want you to bury me in Israel. What does Yosef say? Okay. What does Yaakov reply? No. Promise me. I don't understand. If you trust a guy, trust a guy. And if you don't trust a guy, what's the point of making a promise? Reminder. That's why we have phones. Right? Right? Or you tie a ribbon around your big toe, thinking, I wonder why. Right? So what's the what's the purpose of a covenant? What's the purpose of a promise? Right? People get married all the time, right? Why do you get married for? What's the purpose of getting married? You want to live with somebody. What's the whole idea of a ceremony? What's the purpose? I know it sounds like a ridiculous question, but why do you do it? Because the law says, because there's a law because you're afraid what God's going to say? What's the purpose of a covenant? The purpose of a covenant is, as long as two people love each other and they get along, fine, because they hate. What happens when they're angry with each other?
Get divorced.
No, meaning, but that's the tragic end. Meaning the purpose of a covenant is even when things aren't going smoothly, you're bound by something greater than yourself. If the whole relationship was like, yes, sir, yeah, go ahead.
No, I'm going to say the covenant is a sign of commitment.
The purpose of, to think of a covenant like a fence around the porch. It has to be, let's say you weigh 150, 200 pounds. That fence better be able to hold 300 pounds. Because if it can hold 150 pounds and you're 150 pounds and you lean against it, you're done. The purpose of a covenant is not when the relationship is good. The purpose of the covenant when the relationship is not good. Does that make sense? Yeah? No?
Well, I don't know. I think,
Say.
My life. Well, okay. To me, I don't know. I think, like Hasidic, like you and other. There's not that much divorce. There are some, but
right.
Not as. I think it's a matter of both the husband and the wife following the rules.
Right. No, I'm trying to say it. The point I was trying to make is, you enter into an agreement that you promise somebody. The whole idea is, even when I'm not in the mood, even when. By the way, going back to the whole story, Yaakov and Yosef. Yosef went to Yaakov to Pharaoh and said, "My father wants to be buried in Israel." So Pharaoh said, "He wants." Okay, so he wants. But I promised him. So Parshat, okay, we're politicians. We break promises all the time. So Yosef said, I made a promise to you not to. Yosef had a secret on Paro that Paro didn't want anyone to know. So Yosef said, while I'm already breaking promises, I might leak it to page 6, whatever it is, to the tabloids. So Paro said, okay, fine. Because the covenant is not based. See, the relationship with God a Jewish person has is not based on what we do. You're not a better Jew, or you're not more of a Jew or less of a Jew because you put on tefillin and you didn't put on tefillin. But God is saying, if you want to act Jewish, you want to be the most of what you should be, you put on tefillin. But it doesn't change what you are. Give me an expensive wood. Example of walnut. And give me what pine is cheaper wood, right?
Well,
Yeah.
Is
teak
walnut
even more expensive.
whatever?
What?
Is
Teak.
walnut
Oh, yeah, teak is very.
okay? Is teak wood more wood than pine wood? No, it's the same wood. One's more expensive, and then people saw it, but you're missing. You can't, like my teacher would say, you can't take out the woodness. In Yiddish, he would say, there's the Holz and the Holzkeit. There's the wood and the woodness. There's the Judaism, right? There's a Jew and Judaism. A Jew is supposed to act Judaism, but you can't take out the Jew. So Parshat Yitro is about the Judaism. Do this, don't do that. This week's Parsha, Mishpatim, is about the Jew. It is about the connection that every Yid has until God. That's why there's no laws. It's about the construction of the altar and the blood and the sacrifice and the sprinkling of the covenant. Yeah, it's true. 40 days from now, the Jewish people screw up and they build a calf. But that's why the covenant is there. That's why the covenant is there. Why did Moshe smash the tablets? By the way, no. Why did Moshe smash the tablets?
He had a hissy fit.
Yeah, it's a smashing.
Well, my non-religious cousin. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like Anyway, he's a lawyer, and he says, "Oh, he told me, why did you get divorced? Well, I'm a lawyer, so it's easy to get divorced."
I don't have to pay another lawyer. So usually, people don't get divorced because it's not worth it. Here, I understand. There you go. So, yeah.
No, I'm just thinking, they had built the calf while he was up getting the 10 Commandments.
Yeah.
correct?
No, 10 Commandments is told to everybody. You mean the tablets, not the 10 Commandments.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So when he came down, I'm trying to think, he got angry, but I can't imagine.
But Moshe was the most perfect human being ever.
That's what I was going to say.
The thing that
It
Moshe
just
had
makes no
in a
sense.
fit of anger, it's not
He
Moshe.
tripped over a rock.
Yeah. Whoops.
Tapped
Like
his toe.
like Mel Brooks. Jewish people get
I got
15.
you 15.
There, 10 Commandments. So because Moshe had this genius idea. Why was God angry with the Jewish people? God said, we signed that contract 40 years ago. Moshe goes, "Shh, what contract? That's what Moshe did, literally. That's what he did. So if you think about it like this, God gets all angry at the giving about the golden calf. So Moshe says, listen here, the giving of the Torah we learned last week was an unbelievable experience, right? God spoke all 4 sides, thunder and lightning. You can have an amazing experience. After a while, the effect of the experience wears off. Haraya, the proof is, 40 days later, they built the golden calf. This week's parsha is about the relationship. 3,000 years later, we're still here. That's the meat. That's why God says, I want you to build me a Mishkan. The purpose of the Mishkan was to be able to draw down godliness down here. Let me ask you a question. You think it's a big kunst, it's a big trick that God showed off that he's boss? That God spoke and sound came from all sides and there was thunder and lightning and all of that and God pulled out all the tricks. I mean,
Boss,
exactly. Warner Brothers makes a movie with special effects. Like, wow, they made a movie. So yeah, but what are you talking about? This is what they do, right? They're a movie studio, right? The fact that God showed off He's God, big deal, right? By the way, there's a great talk of the Rebbe. It's really related to next week. not this week. The creation of the world. When I say the creation of the world, I don't mean Earth. I mean the creation of the entire universe, right? All the cosmos, everything else, is 30 verses, 32, 33 verses, right? That's it. The creation of the Mishkan, the portable temple, is like 300 and something verses. Takes up the entire Truma, entire Tzaveh, part of Kisisa, the whole Vayakel, the whole Bukode. It's 4.5 portions. And you might think, the creation of the entire world is only 30 verses, right? And it's very nice, the box we built, right? It was 30 amas by 10 amas. It was 45 feet by 15 feet, in a courtyard. It had nice golden, very nice. But we know the Torah is so cheap on words and details. Why did the Torah go so long? The answer is, the Rebbe says, because to build a world for God is not a big deal. Right? He's God. So that God could build a world, a physical world, big deal. That man can build a house for God, no, that's interesting. The fact that you could take an infinite God and put him in a material place, that already is, that God could come down on Mount Sinai, so to speak, that's not a big deal. He's God. That human beings can elevate, can be more than what we are, that needs attention. And that's what's going on this week's Parshat. And that ties in why Rashi quotes the word Moshe went up. Because that's the theme of this week's Parshat. That we elevated, we became something. And this is what the Medrash says about the construction of the Mishkan. Amar Rabbi Shua, text number 9. Rabbi Shua says, that God told the Jewish people while they were still in Egypt that the redemption was conditioned on construction of the Mishkan and the tabernacle was going to be there and the divine presence. And when the tabernacle was built, something unprecedented in history happened. From the time of creation until that day, God's presence hadn't rested in the lower realms of the world. This began only after the Torah, after the tabernacle was built. And now we can understand why Rashi says it's out of chronological order, because it's two different stories. It's two different. That's why it's in two different portions. One is the law, one is the relationship, and one is how strong is that relationship. 40 days after getting married, the woman with Jewish people, he's going around and sniffing around for another god. God says, I took you out of Egypt. I feed you. I house you. What are you sniffing around for? What are you looking around?
Like a dog.
Yeah, I say, what are you looking around? You're looking for someone else. What are you looking for someone else? I'm your everything. No, maybe God says to Moshe, maybe this wasn't such a good idea. He said that. He said to Moshe, so I'm going to wipe them out, start again. Moshe says, if they go, I go. I mean, the Parshat Kisisa shows you how strong the connection, the relationship is. So now we can understand why everything is in two different Parshas. So two stories. You see, the answers are on the screen. Two stories are a single event, but each one highlights a different aspect of the event. To come up is an integral part of the narrative. The story is all about Moshe ascending, and also why does Rashi use the word the Ten Commandments? Because that's not the giving of the Torah. Because in the beginning, it's in Parshat Yitro, the first section was all about the Ten Commandments, the command. That's why he used that term. But our portion is telling a different story. The story how we entered the covenant with God, which took place before the giving of the Ten Commandments, and this culminates in us building a house together, where there's place for God to be, a place for us to be. I remember when I first right before I got married, my mother said to me, "Let me give you a word of advice." She tells me, "I know you're all in love and you guys are all the same. You're open. Just respect each other's privacy." So what is that supposed to mean? She said, first of all, don't use each other's toothbrush. It's disgusting. Okay. And second of all, she tells me, says, bathroom is in a bathroom. I don't know what she said. Maybe this is something other couples, but even when you're a couple, you need your own privacy. She needs her own privacy. For a healthy relationship, everything you need some things to be off limits. We built a house for Hashem, and there's the Holy of Holies. That's God's private room. No one goes there. It says, and that's a healthy relationship. Because when we're all over the place, God's all over the place, and we're all over the place, it was a disaster. You build a home. There's rules. Here you can no playing ball in the dining room, right? In the yard you can play ball. In the dining room you can't. You can't play ball. I mean, I grew up in a house full of boys. My mother.
Yeah, but then they watch television and then they get
No watching television in the temple. No TVs. Maybe in the future you can streamline streaming the service. But here we have now. This is the lesson from this week's parsha. There's the what. So there's what we do, and by the way, sometimes even in a couple, the couple can get very caught up in the day-to-day minutia of running the house, right? They could go and get groceries, picking up the kids from soccer practice, but they forget about the why. And then 20 years later, they turn around and say, do I love this guy? I don't know. They haven't, I said 20 years, not 60 years. Not 40, right?
40.
They're 20 years, 40 years, 60 years. Yeah,
46.
46.
How much?
46.
46.
Well, this is my second life.
26 years, 27 weeks, 10 days, 4 hours.
What can I tell?
32 minutes.
Right, what they say, what's the longest sentence in the English language?
I do.
There you go, that's right. By the way, this happens to religious Jews too. In the words of Beryl Wine, we have 4 minutes. Beryl Wine, the historian, I once heard a great line from him in one of his classes. When he was talking about the necessity for chassidus, he was saying it's possible you can have a religious Jew who doesn't think about God. Now, to say those words, what do you mean? He's religious. He thinks about God all the time. No. He goes to shul, he prays, he does all the things, but he's never thinking about why am I doing it.
It's done automatically.
Yeah. So sometimes in a relationship with another human being, in a relationship with God, we get so caught up in the what, we forget about the why. That's why we talk about learning chassidus before davening. You can't just wake up and go straight into davening. Who are you talking to? You have to learn, you have to appreciate what God does for you. You should know the siddur, the morning prayer, is structured that way. What's davening? Davening is really Shema and Amida. You can't just walk into Shema. You start off with you walk, you eat, all those different things, and God created the world, and then you could appreciate. So sometimes in a relationship, it's important to focus on just to do something for no reason, right? Go on a walk, go on a drive, just to get in touch with the why. Then the what comes a lot easier. So to say the tabernacle, a physical home for God, embodies the ethos of containing and manifest the great God, the revelation Sinai, in a permanent space. We said this already. Okay, let's go to. We said this. God wants to integrate the layers. We're encouraged to balance mitzvahs observant with emotional aspect. By the way, I once had a conversation. This guy was with a guy. Do the key points. Last story. This guy said, I was by your brother's shul, and he davened mincha, pretty late. I said, really? For no reason? He said, no, they were learning, and the class went. I said, oh, so they were learning Torah. And because they're learning Torah, so it was a preparation. For davening. So he says, yeah, but the code of Jewish law. I said, I know what the code of Jewish law says. But if you're learning for the sake of davening, then it's okay. No, but the code of Jewish law. So I wasn't getting through. And I was getting frustrated. Sometimes when I get frustrated, I can say things, a little harsh. So I said, you know what your problem is? So you have no idea who God is. He says, are you telling me? He says, I don't believe in God? I said, no, I didn't say that. I said, you believe in God. You have no idea what you believe in. Conversation was over.
And he's never to be seen again.
No, I wasn't not a member of our show. The guy stopped me in the store. So it's important to balance, not only the what, but the why and the who. Okay, Torah's narrative the key points. Torah narrative about the Torah is scattered and non-linear, raising questions about its structure. Narrative 1 focuses on God delivering instructions. Narrative 2 highlights the relational aspect, emphasizing the Jewish people's acceptance of the covenant. The Torah separates these narratives. Why? To distinguish their distinct messages, law-giving versus relationship. And both aspects are essential. Judaism is both a set of law and profound personal relationship with God, and we're encouraged to integrate both. So when someone who just says, I'm a Jew at heart and I love God and everything else, but doesn't do anything Jewish, it's not enough. Guy who's all about the law, but doesn't think about why he's doing it, it's also not good. It's a balance. Everything is, that's the way Hashem created the world. No one person is perfect. Everybody needs something. Any questions? Comments? But all right, have a good week. And this week we're back to our regular scheduled
Tuesday.
Tuesday, unless life throws me a curveball. All right.